Hey
Hey,
guys.
hey guys. Episode 12, Immersive Talks.
Woo woo. Made it.
Yeah, we recorded one before. We didn't like it.
Garbage.
So here's a new one. I'm here with Jen,
Hey.
and I'm Marco from Immersive Arts, and welcome. Welcome to episode 12, the major 12.
Thanks for continuing to listen to us jabber about art and technology. Happy you're
Yeah,
here.
that's true. It's a very interesting topic, art and technology. We keep finding interesting topics to talk about, and today is one of them.
Yeah.
So today we want to talk about automation in art,
Mm-hmm.
and where does the artist, where is the artist in this? Like what is his role? Um,
Can it disappear if automation occurs within art?
yeah,
Will artists be replaced?
will artists will ever be replaced? We're gonna talk about all this stuff. So,
I mean, we can talk about automation in general because
mm-hmm,
a lot of people I think are fearful of this rain cloud that seems to be looming over us, which is that eventually there's going to be no jobs because automation is going to take over, robots are going to take over. At least that's the narrative that people are saying. And newsflash, it's totally true.
yeah, we are seeing automation happening everywhere, and the computers just make it so much simpler or so much more easy to make it happen.
Yeah.
And we are also seeing it in art in different ways. For example, sometimes on Instagram, you were saying, Jem, before that, um, well, sometimes on Instagram you see some people that make those contraption. They are usually mechanical, and they just like make patterns, and that is a form of automation,
Mm-hmm.
of course. um I don't know if we don't necessarily maybe want to talk about those mechanical contraption that make automation happen, but maybe more on the computer side of
Well,
it.
I mean, and I would consider that still I would consider technology replacing humans to be
Mm,
the overall
arching.
theme because I mean you have to think about what they're actually replacing in art and outside of art.
Mm-hmm.
They're replacing these redundant kind of menial jobs that are repetitive and to be frank that no one wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would I want to continue mopping the floors after every shift? Or why would I want to put one tiny screw in an assembly line for like some action figure toy? And it can travel into art. It's like, why would I want to sit there and draw um, a bunch of dots when I'm stippling and like a giant elephant or something
Mm-hmm.
that's mountains high?
Yeah,
And
when you do animation,
yeah,
instead of making literally every frame, you just like,
you have the in between or which is in some programs super helpful if there are any animators out there. It just fills in the different frames. But yeah, you have to think about the jobs that are being replaced, and I think it's okay. Like I don't think
mm-hmm.
that we should worry because what I was saying before is that it frees us up to do higher things. It frees us up to do more abstract things, think of higher concepts, um, and being less distracted by these little menial jobs where they can fry your brain. And at the end of the day, after you've done 1,000 little stipples, 1,000 little dots, it's like, okay, I'm fucking
Mm-hmm.
done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the things that automation is saving us, which is super annoying, and it's really nice to see all this thing coming up. Another thing is that actually using automation in your art would just help you making that specific concept being explained way better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I was saying before is that you can actually begin to use these machines within your artwork itself, conceptually and literally. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean for a robot or an AI to be doing the artwork for you? You can play on this idea itself and make even more interesting work.
Absolutely. Or maybe if you want to portray, for example, I was thinking about those machines that make like specific and precise patterns, and
Mm-hmm.
if you want to convey ideas of order, and you need that as an aesthetic to be like super precise, of course you would use machines way in your you will use printing or machines in your making
Yeah.
of the art. Absolutely.
I think there's still, like, to be fair, we should look at the counter argument, which is um, that a lot of artists make, is that it is an actual meditative process to be doing um, these really fine details, little dots, little lines, spending hours and hours on a work. One can argue that that's part of the process, and
Mm-hmm.
this painstaking, like, detail stuff is very important for the artist and the artwork itself. And again, you can play on the concept of things taking long and things growing over time. That's also an idea. And in art, you have to remember it's not like other jobs, like the supermarket, for example, because it doesn't have to go away. Just the supermarket, in a way, has to go away.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be automized because that's mainstream. There's a large population. Things need to go faster. But your art is your art. You don't necessarily need to or are being forced to use these new tools in your work. It's just something to think about and as a way to expand your art, which what technology is good for.
Also, I was thinking of our last episode about multimedia art,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this age of virtual. And I was thinking that before we weren't, or maybe we didn't necessarily need to automate certain processes, especially on that idea that you were saying of like keep repeating actions and stuff like that, because maybe they weren't necessarily complex enough, which is fine. We didn't need to have anything complex. We just needed to do stuff that we could do with our hand, you know. But now, riding the wave of the multimedia projects, like the one that we were talking in the other episode, I can imagine that automation would take a bigger space into your art making because of the complexity that that the projects require.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lot of moving parts and multimedia sound, and visuals and whatever other things are there, it becomes very hard to take care of all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, if these things happen live, so with live interaction and stuff like that, it's almost completely impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So we are, as artists, we are combining ourselves already with machines. We are literally becoming,
Cyborgs.
cyborgs basically in our making, our making. Okay, there are tools, but they're so very much connected to us.
Mm-hmm.
um
And tools have traditionally elevated art.
mhm.
I mean, one can argue that art is only what the tools are that are available at the time, photography being the main example. When the camera was invented, then photography um, branched off from portraits and grew into something more art I was going to say autistic, something more artistic. So you can do the same with technology that's emerging today. If anything, you can break away artistically from the straight lines of computerization, or you can embrace it. It depends on what you as an artist want to do, but either way it's going to augment it a little bit and make it a little more interesting. Who knows, maybe your traditional drawings will become super vintage and very very sought after because everyone's doing computer art.
Absolutely. But also I was thinking that it has been already understood in art history that you don't necessarily need to make the piece, the project, or the art piece to be considered an artist. We know that I don't know, Rodin or Canova, the big sculptors of the past didn't necessarily make all of their sculptures every time. They were just thinking about the sculpture. They were just thinking about what to convey with that sculpture, but that they were very busy, so they didn't have to do like 10 sculptures a month. They would just like pay someone else to do it, and then they go there and say, oh, that's good, it's perfect, whatever. So it is already understood that you don't necessarily need to do it, but it's just like the thinking of the art is the art itself. When with the ready-made movement, with the urinatory by Duchamp, that was a thing taken from a place and put into
another place.
Put it into museum. So he didn't make it, he just signed it, for example.
Yeah.
So we know that already. Now I wonder if like we start to literally automate everything into the art process, are we as artists gonna get out of job?
I think we'll go deeper into philosophy. And the art making will be, I always thought of artists as active philosophers. They're, instead of just stopping at the thinking process and thought experiments, etc., we're making artifacts and physical objects, maybe not always physical, but phenomena, moments, to explore these high concepts. And when even that is gone or is replaced or automized, then we can focus even more on the concept itself. Is that a good thing or what? Who knows?
Yeah, I always saw artists as well as philosophers that used let's say the visual medium, the visual language. While traditional philosophers, the one that you read about, they talk using their specific languages. The visual artist has a little harder objective to translating those concepts into visual form.
Which one can argue is actually easier.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe sometimes visuals, it is way easier to convey than words. Like we always say that a picture can say 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And it's kind of true. It's such a quick and communicative tool, such a quick and profound, very
It's very primitive, that language.
Absolutely.
So it's almost, I mean, we can express higher concepts in that way even more powerfully, in my opinion. Like concepts that you would never be able to articulate in words.
Mm.
That's what I like about art. Um, but I think this idea has definitely helped us as immersive,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's why we could be a little biased.
Yeah.
Because this automation has allowed us to play around with generative art and around with making, I want to say contraptions, but let's just call them installations
Mm-hmm.
where the viewer is the one doing the work and the art is kind of automized just by your intuitive interactions. So it definitely has helped us to create environments and experiences that are more welcoming and more user friendly, if you will. If we didn't have this option, then immersive would be very different.
Yeah.
Like if we didn't have this automation um, thing to it, because now the code can literally grow the art. It's generating works of art just from code, and which is linked to motion, which is linked to sound.
And
So
yeah, and especially for us that we deal with basically live situation, live performances, or live events, or live installation, things that I don't know what to say, but like things that happen at the time, and we need to, like, if an interaction happens at that time, we can't just take all of the interaction that I made and think about it and then make a visualization of it. No, you prepare the installation so that it reacts in real time with the interactions that you do.
yeah, it's almost like a weird spin-off of performance art or
Yeah, absolutely.
action art.
It is definitely performance. I would definitely call it performance art. It's not necessarily made by us, the performance art as artists, but it's made by the audience,
Yeah.
and we just provide a good representation of that interaction, or that specific
Moment.
environment and moment. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, the participants are becoming the I don't want to say I don't want to say monkeys, if you will, but the people in this experiment made by the artist, and then automized in other ways, like the machine, the drawing machine that we were talking about earlier. The robot itself is becoming the worker,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say. So in both scenarios, the artist is actually kind of elevating in status,
Mm-hmm.
in stature, and just um, removing themselves from the job or from the labor, the
Mm-hmm.
menial labor. Well, is that a good thing? Again, I ask. Whenever I say it, whenever I start speaking about it, it sounds good. But then when I get deeper into it, it's like, man, it worries me a little bit because art making, at least for me, is a process for thinking through ideas and through concepts. So if I were to, I don't know, not sketch in my sketchbook or not draw things out, would I understand them as much?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I wasn't performing in the performance piece, would I would I be missing something?
Yeah. um I mean, that I think depends on the artist, of course, but I do agree that usually actively making the thing happen, like, or making your thought come to life, is definitely a thing that everyone should do, and that's the first step to actually make the the art piece that you have in mind.
Yeah.
There's so many times that you think about doing a specific artwork, months pass trying to find the perfect medium, the perfect way, and then when you start doing it, it completely changes, but in a better way. You find 3 millions other possibilities that are way better and than the one that you were thinking before.
Yeah, but yeah, for me, getting into it, like being in it in that process, allows me to see what needs to be changed and to feel intuitively like, okay, this is not working, or this needs to be changed, or this is not going to work. So I wonder if removing myself from that process, and that opportunity for intuition to strike, I wonder if that would change stuff at all. But a big part for my vision or my goal of being an artist is, like a big part is ease and kind of flow of ideas. The perfect vision for me would be like, I wake up and I start creating stuff and it's just flowing out of me. There's no blockage of like, oh my god, I don't have a pencil, I need to go find a notebook, I need to go, all these things that we encounter as artists that are blocking this flow of creativity from above, wherever you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, maybe automation will be definitely the savior for this kind of situation. Who knows what the future would like give us.
Yeah, it would be
in
nice
terms
to have
of
this
tools.
ease.
Yeah, in terms of tools, in terms of like ways to use these tools, for example. Do you know that sometimes a lot of when people see, usually people then really don't understand art, but like when they see a robot starting to paint or some shit, when those gimmicky stuff that usually are on the TV and they show, oh, this robot is starting to paint by itself using an algorithm of AI, whatever, machine learning, whatever. When this stuff happened, I wonder if like when those yeah, sorry, I lost a little bit the train of thought. I wanted to say that those some people, when they usually see this AI and robots doing art, let's say, some are afraid that artists will be like replaced by robots in the same way they are replacing a lot of other jobs. And I don't necessarily think is the case, isn't it?
No.
When I think about it, is because humans are humans. When they make art, they make art from a place of creativity, and that it's very human. I don't know, it comes
from the human experience.
From the human experience, exactly. Coming from the human experience. So robots will never be able to do that, because by definition they're not humans.
Yeah.
They can for sure maybe recreate the logical thinking that we do, or like recreate the techniques that we use every time. But the thing that will be always lacking will be humanity.
I think people are like honestly not scared that it'll replace artists. If we're being honest here, I think the worry is that when an AI or a robot will have the ability to be creative, that they're gonna achieve something that is so sacred to us humans, which is art. Like art is this untouchable, undefinable concept, entity, thing that humans do. That's, everyone tries to explain what art is or what an artist does or blah, blah, blah. It's very sacred to us. So when people talk about AI achieving this very human thing, it worries them. And you're exactly right. If an AI is going to create art, it's going to be for another AI. It's not going to be for humans. And then they'll be doing this sacred thing amongst themselves that we won't be able to understand. So that's the real fear. It's not that it's going to replace us artists, you know?
It feels like that creativity itself is, it's almost it's impossible to automate and replicate, and therefore robots cannot take it away from us, because in a world where everything is getting automated, probably the only thing that would actually remain for us to do as humans will be being human and be creative with our humanity, you know.
But I wanna challenge you a little bit on that and say that if you break down creativity as just making connections between things, and more creative people are those that can make a connection between things that haven't been connected before, hence a new perception. So in theory, an AI could connect various things of human knowledge, because it would ideally have all of human knowledge once it's connected to all of the internet. So it could indeed make these little connections. There just would be lacking that meaning for it. It
Yeah.
could create art, but there would be no meaning behind that art. So is it really art?
Well, no. But we that's true, we do make connection. It's just a question of making connections and stuff like that, but we make connections with meaning and with certain looking and feeling certain trends that are quintessentially human. Like if you decide to get into vaporwave, is that because you were feeling nostalgia about the 80s? I don't necessarily know if an AI eventually will be feeling nostalgia for a thing that never necessarily have experienced like the 80s. Probably doesn't even know what the fuck the 80s means on a human level. We know on a human level what the 80s is. Yes, is a connection, it's a collection of social stuff that happen, or like cultural phenomenon,
but it's also a feeling.
Like it becomes more of a feeling that is expressed aesthetically through vaporwave now.
I think that's a really good point that you kind of touched on, which is like one of the most important things about art and art making is intent. So you mentioned Duchamp and putting the urinal inside a museum.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, it's just a urinal, but these avant-garde artists are literally like the intent of putting it there is what the art is itself. So yeah, a robot would never want to make a vaporwave scene because they wouldn't have this nostalgia. And how can you create an art movement without, like, I don't know, rebelling against something or wanting to change something or elevate humanity in any way? Like an AI, I guess, would fundamentally not be lacking creativity, but would be lacking intent.
Yeah, or human intent. That's the thing. Like, even if he adds a certain artificial intelligence intent, it will completely different from the human intent, which is the thing that makes it so good for humans. Like when you listen to a song that talks about a broken love, no broken relationship, whatever. If you knew that an AI wrote it, you wouldn't feel the same as if a human wrote it, because human actually like felt those emotion, or I feel at least you would feel a little cheated, in my opinion.
I don't know. The last thing I'll say on it is that I think AI will definitely be able to be creative, and I think eventually they'll be able to make art for themselves, because I think art was developed as a way to explore truths and learn about oneself. So perhaps AI will be one day conscious enough to want to explore these deeper questions about itself, and therefore it will create some sort of art. But that's the only time I think that it'll be necessary, because what else is the point of art than inquiry, in my opinion, and expression? So yeah, I would be a little scared if they were able to create, but I wouldn't, as an artist, be scared that it would replace me, because it can never replace human art, but it can definitely make AI art.
So if it can replace everyone, every we can imagine AI is replacing every other job, can we? Like we can think about
human
jobs like driving, whatever the fuck, or doing your taxes.
Yeah.
You know, you can imagine all this stuff. In my opinion, by definition, it's definitely impossible that will replace human creativity. And in my opinion, that is the only thing that will remain to us as humans. Like the only thing that will be left to us to be is being humans, which is perfect. Like you don't wanna do your taxes. You would just wanna be human, and whatever it essentially means to be human, and like, you know, make stuff happen, create, literally. And that's one of the reasons that as Immersive we really push on the idea of interactivity, because we do feel that taking that first step into just making something happen, even if, okay, we as artists set up the environment that make that interaction and that creation happen, but the sense of accomplishment and the sense of pride that you will get out of just making a simple interaction is so important that it's creativity. It's an incredible important thing to try to teach and make everyone experience, so they can bring it to their own field and their own interests. Because eventually that's the only thing that, in my opinion, would remain to us as humans.
And that's a beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing.
Maybe it's a little optimistic, but that's what I feel.
When we dive deeper into technology, we're going to learn more and more about ourselves. And it's so important not to resist it, because it's going to happen anyway. So use it while it's here. Gain insights from it and allow it to help you grow in your own art and your own creativity.
And as human.
And remember, automation is not a bad thing.
Never. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Jen, for all of this.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you, all of you guys, for listening. And if you want to tell us your opinion about this automation, what do you think about it? Have you ever seen a robot paint like a French impressionist? Let us know in the comments.
Did you ever paint a robot like one of your French girls?
Yeah. Have you ever done it? And did you like it?
What did it look
like? Tell us all this stuff at Immersive Arts on Facebook or Instagram. We are on SoundCloud and all this stuff. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Listening. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
See ya in the next episode.